Adopted when he was 19 in 1987. He was almost 9 years old. I raised him for 10 years. He got married, graced me with 4 grandchildren. Unfortunately, John took his own life a little bit over 5 years ago. As a matter of fact, yesterday, the 17th, would have been his 41st birthday. Saturday, the Feast of the Exaltation of the Cross, was 5 years we buried him. And his oldest daughter, my oldest granddaughter, Ariane, a few days, as a matter of fact, this coming Friday, she was diagnosed 5 years ago with kidney cancer. And this coming spring, she lost a kidney, but this coming spring, she will hopefully be considered cured after 5 years in remission. So I'm a great-grandpa priest. I've had experience with cancer in my family, suicide in my family. A big part of my ministry is reaching out to people who struggle with cancer, struggle with suicide, because I still think that these are tentacles of the culture of death, right? Although my focus, of course, is abortion. Why? Because really my pro-life activism started in the 70s when I was complicit of an abortion, and I found out 40 years later when I was in the seminary that took the lives of twins. Now my story that Phil alluded to is on social media. It's on YouTube. You can go to my YouTube channel, and I gave you my business card. You go to protestchildkilling.com. There's a link to everything there. You can see my story, hear my story. That's what most people want to hear. They want to hear my complicity in an abortion, and I'm more than willing to tell it, but what I need to tell you tonight is far more important, I think. So I'm an adoptive father. I'm a post-abortive father. I'm a grandfather, great-grandfather, and of course, as a priest, late life vocation, ordained in 2005. Didn't enter the seminary until I was 48 in 2000. Already a grandpa once. When I got ordained, grandpa 4 times, great-grandpa now. In that context, I want to tell you a little bit about my pro-life experience. Again, I've had the experience with post-abortion healing. I'm a certified Rachel priest. I have been involved with Rachel's Vineyard from the very, very beginning. I'm personal friends with Teresa Burke, the founder of Rachel's Vineyard. I was the first male to give my testimony with Silent No More. So I've been involved with Silent No More from the very, very, very beginning. I've been sidewalk counseling since the year 1999. I am one of the organizers of Red Rose Rescues. I have been arrested 4 times. I've spent 7 days in jail over 2 stints. If you don't know what Red Rose Rescue is, I will probably explain that within the context of my talk. So post-abortion healing, activism, sidewalk counseling, obviously spiritual outreach to post-abortive women, post-abortive men. And I've started 2 crisis pregnancy centers. Now, Project Defending Life in Albuquerque that I started 6 months after I was ordained to the priesthood with the help of Phil. And at one time we had 100 volunteers under the umbrella, and you could not name a pro-life ministry or pro-life 40 Days for Life, Life Chain. You name it, it was under that umbrella at one time. And we call Project Defending Life actually a pro-life center, all right? But we also had a mom's ministry with multiple ultrasound machines. We went for portable ultrasounds because of the flexibility. I also started, when I was still in the seminary, St. Gerard's Center for Life, which was right across the street, now is next door to the largest abortion facility in Connecticut, in Hartford. Both of these pregnancy centers, pregnancy resource centers, are still going strong in Albuquerque and in Hartford. So you can see there's not one part of the pro-life movement that I haven't been involved with. And of course, when I got ordained, I decided to do regional pro-life work, even though I'd known Father Frank since the year 2000. I was head of Seminarians for Life when I was in the seminary for 3 years. And I decided to do regional pro-life work. However, after my son committed suicide, I asked my Archbishop, Michael Sheehan, in Santa Fe, if he would release me from being a pastor and my spiritual director said, why don't you call Father Frank up and go and work for him? I worked for Priests for Life on a national level for 3.5 years. I just resigned this December 31st. My new Archbishop granted me early retirement, so I'm only 67, 3 years before retirement age. But he allowed me to retire so I could go do full-time pro-life work. And that's when I started On the Road for Life, and that's what this is. As a matter of fact, when we're done, I want all of us, all right, to go out and stand next to the camper chapel, all right, and get a nice picture, because that's what I like to do wherever I go, not just get, you know, screenshots of different actions at the prayer vigil tomorrow, whatever, but a nice picture with everybody out by the camper as I go from city to city to city. All right, so that is the context in what in which I want to lay out what I'm going to lay out tonight. All right, so let's get started. I did not film this part. I'm going to film it starting right now. Now, my story goes back to Adam and Eve, all right? We're not going to do the whole Old Testament. Don't worry about it. All right, but listen, I need to ask you, so what do you think the greatest sin of Adam was? What was the essence of the original sin? And I use this actually in my talk when I talk about my personal responsibility and how I was responsible for the death of 2 babies. I reference it back to Adam and Eve, and Adam not protecting Eve. Right? In chapter 3 of Genesis, all right, verse 6, all right, it says, the woman saw that the tree was good to eat and pleasing to the eye, and it was desirable for the knowledge that it could give. So she took some of the fruit and ate it, and gave also to her husband who was with her, and he ate it. So Adam was in paradise with Eve when the serpent showed up to test Eve, confuse Eve, tempt Eve to eat the fruit, right, the forbidden fruit. Now, what did Adam do during that entire time? Did he say, Eve, don't listen to him? Eve, let's get out of here? Did he step on the serpent's head? Right? Did he say, get behind me, Satan? No, he does nothing. He does absolutely nothing, right? So Eve, all right, of course, being intuitive, as all women are, thought to herself, well, if Adam didn't want me to eat the fruit, he'd just say, hey, don't eat the fruit. As a matter of fact, I think that Eve probably looked at Adam a couple of times for some counsel, for some advice, and she probably got this. Right? Okay? So she eats the fruit. All right, well, I think, as a matter of fact, all right, the whole issue was, and I could read the entire account, but what was the issue? The issue was, would Eve die if she ate the fruit? And Satan says, surely you will not die, right? So I think Adam was looking intently at Eve to see if indeed, all right, she died if she ate the fruit. Well, she eats the fruit and she doesn't die. What do you think Adam did? Give me some of that fruit, right? And he eats the fruit. All right, so we know the story, right? They realize they're naked. Can you shut this fan off? All right, they realize they're naked. They put on some clothes, right? They go into hiding. God comes looking for them. I want to read the part where God comes looking for them. All right. So the eyes of both of them were open, and they realized they were naked. All right, so the man and his wife heard the sound of Yahweh God walking in the garden in the cool of the day, and they hid. But Yahweh God called to the man, "Where are you?" he asked. "I heard the sound of you in the garden," so he replied, "I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid." "Who told you you were naked? Have you been eating of the fruit I forbade you?" All right, okay? Now notice that God comes looking for Adam. Comes looking for Adam, not Eve, right? He comes looking for Adam. All right, we attribute the original sin to Adam, not to Eve. Why? Well, because the original sin really was Adam not protecting bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. But the real key to the entire story is what? When God says, so you ate of the forbidden fruit, what does Adam say at that point in time? What does he do? Right? He not only blames Eve, these are his exact words. He says, the woman you sent me gave me the fruit to eat. So there's three beings in paradise. The supreme being, Adam and Eve, Adam, who could have avoided the entire sin, right, pulled Eve out of there, stepped on the serpent's head, now blames God and Eve. Imagine if Adam had jumped out of the bushes and said, listen, God, we did something terribly wrong, but it was my fault. I did not stand up, a bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. Punish me, don't punish her. You think things would have been different? I think so. Would they have been how? We don't know. But they would have been different. So the real key of the original sin was Adam not taking responsibility. Not taking responsibility. Now, we see this in today's culture. The reason why I lost my twins to abortion is because I didn't take responsibility. I didn't stand up and be a man and protect my Eve. That is happening in an overwhelming number of abortions. I call it the Adam syndrome, the Adam and Eve syndrome, right? And again, if you want an elaboration of that, you can go to find my story online. We see it in the church. The shepherds of our church not willing to take responsibility, all right, for the scandals that are going on in the church. Not willing to take responsibility even for abortion, right? So many issues in the church, and the bishops, the shepherds, are unwilling to take responsibility. We see the Vatican not taking responsibility for many of the things that are going on. And we see this in this country. We see this in this country. As a matter of fact, it's rampant within the pro-life movement. And I think it's something that we need to reflect in and of ourselves every single day. Now, who knows or who has ever heard of William Wilberforce? Who's William Wilberforce? Who's William Wilberforce?
English statesman who actually was responsible for the ending of the slave trade in England.
That's
Correct.
right.
Yes.
All right. William Wilberforce founded the abolitionist movement, all right, in the British Empire. That in 20 years, after centuries of slave trade in the British Empire being legal, William Wilberforce ends the slave trade in the British Empire in 20 years. Not only that, from the moment that he started the abolitionist movement, they ended slavery in 46 years, and that number should not escape you in terms of an important period of time. So in 20 years, he ends the slave trade after going on for centuries. 46 years ends slavery in the British Empire after he starts the abolitionist movement. He started the abolitionist movement in 1789. He had a sincere conversion in 1785. He was already Christian, high church Anglican, I think, but he had kind of like an evangelical type of conversion in 1785. And in 1789, he started the abolitionist movement. He started with a speech. To Parliament, of which he was a member. He was a member of the House of Commons. I believe this speech was given to the entire House of Parliament. And I want to read you just the first paragraph of this speech. The first thought that was in Wilberforce's mind when he started the abolitionist movement. Because I think it is critical for us today as pro-life activists. All right, just the first paragraph, and it's a short paragraph, believe me. William Wilberforce. I mean not to accuse anyone, but to take the shame upon myself, in common with the whole Parliament of Great Britain, for having suffered this horrid trade to be carried out under our authority. We are all guilty. We ought to all plead guilty, and not to exculpate ourselves by throwing the blame on others. The woman you sent me gave me the fruit to eat. Not exculpate ourselves by throwing the blame on others. And I therefore deprecate, he was known for his flowery language, every kind of reflection against the various descriptions of people who are more immediately involved in this wretched business. Now, it's interesting that I came across that quote in Jonathan von Maren's book. Jonathan wrote a book, Seeing is Believing. It was a case for abortion victim imagery. And I was skimming the book real quickly. I'd already been, I'm on board since I started pro-life activism in the late 90s with abortion victim imagery. All right, but I'm skimming the book, and it was a Friday night. I'm in Memphis, Tennessee. The next day, I had to give a talk to a fairly large group of Memphis, Tennessee pro-life activists. And for months, I've been putting out on social media that legalized abortion in this country after 46 years is government sanctioned, government protected by the courts and law enforcement, and government funded with our tax dollars, daily mass murder of preborn children. Now, for months I've been putting that out. But I was asking our Lord, give me something that I can really wake the people up with. And I'm reading the beginning of Von Maren's book. It's the first chapter. And he has almost a whole speech in his book, but to show how one man changed, all right, the face of social justice in the British Empire. And his case was, Jonathan was saying that a few people, all right, have led every social justice movement, all right, in history. It's only been a few people, right? And that also Wilberforce used graphic imagery, verbiage, all right, as well as visuals, all right? So I get to that line and I say, wow, that's it. That's it, right? This substantiates, right, government sanctioned, government protected by the courts and law enforcement, and government funded with our tax dollars, daily mass murder of preborn children. Right? What William Wilberforce is saying is that it's no longer the slave trade's fault, slave traders or slave owners, it's not their fault anymore. They're doing what we're allowing them to do. And indeed, it's no longer the abortion industry's fault in our country after 46 years, because the government is allowing them to kill our preborn children. Not only allowing them, but protecting them. And funding it with our tax dollars. That's where our own accountability comes. Our tax dollars are going to fund abortion. And if you don't think so, if Hyde Amendment came into your mind, all right away, forget it. It's a lie. It's a lie. All right. Not only we all know, all right, that minus now $50 million or $60 million, all right, that $500 million is going to Planned Parenthood. We all know that. Right, to fund Planned Parenthood, we defund Planned Parenthood. Not defunding Planned Parenthood, we're going to close Planned Parenthood. We're going to defund Planned Parenthood for, let's just close them down. But not only that, there's billions going into Medicaid abortions every single year. And the way that works, and the way the federal government gets out, well, no federal monies are going to fund abortion, nonsense. Because this is what happens. The states get block grants from the federal government to supplement their own state tax money for Medicaid, right? Once that federal money goes to the states, it becomes state money. It's no longer federal money. But the states where they're allowed to fund abortions, and it's more than half the states, all right, our federal tax dollars are going to fund abortions. In New Mexico, my state tax dollars and my federal tax dollars are going to fund abortion. And believe me, our federal tax dollars are going to fund abortion, not just directly to Planned Parenthood, but Medicaid abortions. That's the absolute truth. So it is government sanctioned, the government's allowing it, the government's protecting it through law enforcement and the courts, and then, of course, funding it. Now, so why has it been going on for 46 years? Because I think that we really haven't grasped that completely. And after 3.5 years in the national movement, I've come to this realization as a Catholic priest. We have two political parties. I'm not even going to name them by name. I'm going to name them this way. And you're all going to know exactly who I'm talking about. The party of omission. Everybody know what I'm talking about? Party of omission, party of commission. Everybody know what I'm talking about? Party of omission, party of commission. All right? The party of omission is being enabled to remain the party of omission. Who's enabling the party of omission? The mainstream pro-life movement, the leadership of the mainstream corporate pro-life movement, who are allowing the party of omission to give us nothing. And I'm going to take a few minutes, right, to explain, give you examples to make you realize, and you're going to scratch your head saying, wow, I didn't know that, I didn't know that, I didn't know that. And then you have the party of commission, who thinks it's okay to kill babies up to the day of birth, right? And they're enabled. And who are they enabled by? Well, they're enabled for the most part by the Catholic Church. By the Catholic Church, especially the leadership of the Catholic Church. Because 50% of Catholics in this country vote for the party of commission every single election. And if 50% of Catholics vote for the party of commission every single election, all right, as the shepherds go, so goes the sheep, all right, I'll say that 50% of the bishops, all right, vote for the Democratic Party every single year. So you have the party of omission that's doing nothing at the federal level. And you may say to your mind, well, Father, no, that's not true. They're doing stuff. Oh, yeah, let's talk about that. All right, but they're enabled by the mainstream pro-life movement, the leadership of the mainstream pro-life movement, who are willing to accept anything, nonsense, nothing, crumbs, whatever they're given. And then you get the party of commission that's enabled, all right, by the leadership of the church and 50% of the Catholics. The bishops went to the party of commission and said, look, you take the abortion plank up to the day of birth out of your platform, or we're dropping you like a hot rock. What do you think the party of commission would do? What do you think they would do? They'd have to say, look, we're going to drop the plank, all right, because without, all right, the Catholic vote, they're nothing. They're done. It's over, right? Okay. So you might have issue with the party of omission. Let me see, where should I start? Oh, well, so there was just a lobby day on Capitol Hill the other day. Everybody aware of that? All right, Father Frank called a lobby day, and about 15 people showed up, and they were going to lobby the House of Representatives on the Born Alive Infant Protection Act. Everybody familiar with the Born Alive Infant Protection Act? Yes? Who's not? Right, so you have New York. All right, New York, after they said it's okay to kill babies up to the day of birth, all right, they actually, also started asking questions. Well, what if a baby was born from a botched abortion? Oh, we'll let him die. The governor of Virginia, the big controversy. Oh, I think that we should just let him die, okay? All right, so this became a big deal. It started actually in the Senate. It actually started in the Senate. All right, one of the senators saying, we need a Born Alive Infant Protection Act. And everybody said, yeah. Well, they didn't have enough votes in the Senate because you need 60 votes to pass legislation. And now the mantle's been picked up in the House of Representatives. Of course, we don't even have a majority in the House of Representatives, right? But so we're having this lobby day. 80 times they have asked Pelosi to bring up, all right, this Born Alive Infant Protection Act. All right, and 80 times she's refused to do it, and they're pounding the party of commission over the head. So the party of omission is pounding the party of commission over the head with this Born Alive Infant Protection Act. Okay? Big deal. All right? Well, as soon as this clamoring started in the Senate and now in the House, I've been asking, why do we need a Born Alive Infant Protection Act? Why do we need this piece of legislation? And of course the answer would be because, Father, we can't allow babies born alive, all right, to be left to die. Well, I'm sorry, but we can't allow any babies from the moment of conception to die. But that's not even what I'm talking about. Jill Stennick gave her testimony in front of the congressional hearing the other day. As when I saw Jill, and I'm good friends with Jill, it was deja vu all over again. Because in 2001, Jill Stennick gave her testimony in front of Senate committees, House committees, and in 2002, the Senate and the House both passed an Infant Born Alive Protection Act. And it was signed by President Bush. So in 2002, all right, the government signed the Born Alive Infant Protection Act. And I remember this plain as day. Huge pro-life victory. Yeah, Jill, yeah, we won one. We exerted our will over them. All right, you know, Bush, yeah, 2002, right? Just become president, right? This was a great pro-life victory. Huge pro-life victory. Well, if it was such a big pro-life victory, why do we need the same bill all over again? Well, of course, I know what the answer was, all right, but I pressed the leadership of the pro-life movement. And it turns out they finally admit that that bill had no enforcement power. It was toothless, that there was all kinds of loopholes in that bill. So wait a minute, you're telling me that this great victory that we had in 2002 was not a victory at all? It was nothing, it was meaningless, it was smoke and mirrors, a horse and pony show? Yeah, exactly. Yet, when you hear about the Born Alive Infant Protection Act now, you don't hear about the 2002 legislation. It's just we need to get behind it, Okay, another example. Who's familiar with the pain-capable 20-week abortion ban that passed the House of Representatives in 2017? Who's familiar with that? Right? We should all be familiar with it, okay? Big pro-life victory. All right, 2017, 20-week abortion ban, pain-capable, all right? Baby feels pain, 20 weeks, can't kill the baby, all right? Late-term abortion ban. Okay, great, okay? Have to get behind it, have to get behind it, have to get behind it. This was the first bone of contention I had with the national movement, all right, 2017, when we started butting heads. Because I was all over social media saying, I don't support this legislation. You know why I didn't support the legislation? What was wrong with that bill? That it was a 20-week ban? Well, questionable about enforceability, but absolutely it wasn't enforceable because as much as in 2017 they were telling the entire world, you have to support this bill, you have to support this bill, you have to support this bill. In spite of the fact that this bill could never pass the Senate and would never be signed by the president because we didn't have enough votes in the Senate. And they were pushing this bill and they passed this bill. It had rape exceptions, incest exceptions, and physical health of the mother exceptions. And I was asking the question, wait a second, if we're proposing a bill that can't pass the Senate, why don't we at least propose a clean 20-week abortion ban and find out which congressmen, all right, are willing to vote for legislation without exception? Because what was going on at the same time was a guy named Steve King, Congressman Steve King, was going around with Tom DeLay and my friend Larry Signorano from D.C. and Janet Porter trying to get Congress people to sign on to a heartbeat bill. That would, you hear the heartbeat? No abortion. No exception, heartbeat bill. Right? So you have a 20-week abortion ban with exceptions, heartbeat bill, no exceptions, right? So basically you're talking about, a few weeks after conception, can't kill the baby, virtually eliminate all. They could get 160 co-signers for that bill. 160 co-signers. They couldn't get any more co-signers, even though about 245 congressmen, the majority of Congress, voted for the pain-capable 20-week ban. So the fact of the matter is that pain-capable act with all those exceptions would cover all of the so-called pro-life Congress people that were not pro-life, that were only pro-life with exceptions. And the reason why it was all hush-hush is because the mainstream pro-life movement and the party of omission doesn't want us to know, all right, that a large number of our Congress people are not really purely pro-life. That they're only pro-life if there's rape, incest, physical health, and other exceptions. They need that covered. Now, you guys know, you're savvy enough to know, all right, that rape and incest exceptions are not politically expedient, right? I mean, let's face it, all right? If I'm a rape and incest politician, all right, the pro-lifers are going to start questioning me, and the pro-aborts aren't going to like me anymore. I'm still right? I'm still against abortion, right? All right, but it's also not politically expedient because I've had politicians change their mind by just going up to them and saying, look, is it okay if I quote the fact that you, having rape and incest exceptions, you're okay covering up felonies through the use of abortion? Because, of course, statutory rape and incest are felonies, right? And so any politician that thinks it's okay, all right, to have rape and incest exceptions is okay covering up felonies, all right, through the use of abortion, using abortion to cover up felonies. Once you present it to a politician that way, they don't want any part of it. But we don't present it to politicians that way. We accept their rape and incest exceptions, okay? What happened with Stephen King is after he embarrassed, all right, Chris Smith, the whole pro-life caucus, and quite a few people, the Speaker of the House, all right, in the House of Representatives with the heartbeat bill. You may have remembered this, all right, that the Democrats came after King. And he had a couple of tweets that they accused him of being a supremacist, a white supremacist, a racist, etc. If you read the tweets, they were harmless. All right? Here was the most pro-life guy in the House of Representatives, a sincere Christian guy, and the Republican Party threw him under the bus, took all of his committee assignments away, and not one person in the pro-life movement stood up and said, wait a second, he's our guy. We have to stand by him. Everyone just threw him under the bus.
This is Speaker Paul Ryan?
Yeah, I was livid. I was livid. Okay? So you have the pain-capable 20-week ban. You have the Infant Born Alive Act. All right, let's talk about President Trump. So President Trump, State of the Union address, says all children made in the image and likeness of God, right? As a matter of fact, actually, and I'll get to this in a little while about personhood and what I'm trying to get Trump to do. He actually referred to babies in the womb as persons during the State of the Union address. Went over the heads of most people. They focused on the whole made in the holy image of God, right? 3 months later, 4 months later, what do we have? President Trump coming out and saying that I've always been for rape and incest exceptions. I've always supported rape and incest exceptions, right? Nobody in the pro-life movement was outraged at all. As a matter of fact, one leader in the pro-life movement made a video with a Trump hat, a picture of Trump behind him, and actually apologized for Trump, meaning defended Trump and rationalized that in today's political environment, today's pro-life environment, it's okay to have rape and incest exceptions. Well, I think after 46 years, all right, rape, incest, no exceptions are valid, okay? I mean, I'm willing to take some incrementalism because it is moral, 20-week abortion ban, but let's at least after 46 years make them clean. Okay. So we allowed Trump, without any ripple of opposition, say that he's fully supportive. I sent a letter to Kellyanne Conway, who I know, and I gave ashes to on Ash Wednesday right after Trump got inaugurated, and I've had regular communications with her about another initiative that I'm going to talk about in a second. And I said, this is outrageous. This is hypocritical. This is a contradiction. What is it? All children made in the holy image of God, or just those that weren't born or conceived of rape and incest? Okay, so let me make a comparison here. And I have many, many other examples. I could go on for a long, long time, all right, with these examples of the party of omission. Just a few weeks ago, hey, we're in the state of Texas, right? Second Amendment state, big time Second Amendment state. So you guys are all going to know this, right? All right, President Trump, after the El Paso mass shooting, says, oh, I might support some red flag legislation, right? Some red flag gun control legislation. What did the NRA do? The next day had a public press release saying, Mr. President, if you support any red flag legislation, our people are not going to be happy, all right, and they're going to start thinking about their support of you, right? Right? So you see the contrast there? See the contrast? I mean, after he came out with the rape and incest, why didn't we have a press release saying, Mr. President, after 46 years of preborn child killing, I'm sorry, we cannot accept and we will not support rape and incest exceptions, right? No, we're making apologies for them. We're rationalizing. And this is what's going on today. And it goes on all the time. And I will tell you, and how many here are getting fundraising letters day in and day out, week in and week out? I get a fundraising email from Susan B. Anthony every single day. And I am telling you, what you're being told is what they want to tell you so that you keep sending them money. Now just let that hang there. All right. Election day in 2018, just 9 months ago. All right, November 6, 2018, we lost the House of Representatives, right? Lost the House? Okay. Next day, there was a major press conference. You all remember the press conference because that dude from CNN, Jim Acosta, you remember, was battling the president, right? And the intern went to take the mic, and he's pushing the intern away, and he got suspended. It was a big brouhaha. That same press conference. And this is in the press, all right? You can pull up, you can just Google it, and it will come up. A reporter asked President Trump, now that you've lost the House of Representatives, what does it do to your pro-life agenda? And these are his exact words, the exact answer. I have a solution to the abortion issue that no one else has. It's inflammatory and divisive, so I can't explain it. But we're working on it. I have a solution to the abortion issue that no one else has. It's divisive and inflammatory, so I can't explain it to you. But we're working on it. Now, the entire pro-life movement ignored it. I was jumping for joy. I was jumping for joy. I was beside myself. You know why? In July of 2017, I was sitting in my chapel in my house. President Trump had just had a couple of immigration executive orders overturned. And so this whole executive order thing was in my head, I guess. I'm pondering all things in my heart. And these words come to me. I, Donald Trump, through this presidential executive orders, do recognize constitutional personhood from the moment of fertilization based on indisputable science and abundant case law. And I direct all my federal agencies and departments to act accordingly. I, Donald Trump, through this presidential executive order, do recognize constitutional personhood from the moment of fertilization based on indisputable science and abundant case law, and I direct all my federal agencies and departments to act accordingly. So I started thinking about that. And I said, okay, well, wait a minute, he's not acting like a judge, right? He's not acting like a legislator, he's not passing law. All he's saying is that my executive branch, we're going to interpret personhood under the 14th Amendment, all right, from the moment of conception. That was July 2017. Right away, sent it to Kellyanne Conway and my other contacts in the administration. They confirmed I said, look, I don't expect you to jump for joy over this. Confirm that you received my email. They did. They confirmed they received my email. All right? Okay. August 2017. Health and Human Services. You can shut your phone off. Go ahead.
Okay.
Health and Human Services came out with a public comment period that ended up in their strategic plan. Health and Human Services said from now on, everything that we do is going to be predicated on human life begins at conception. So I sent the Personhood Proclamation presidential executive order to the White House in July of 2017. Within months, Health and Human Services is acting on human life begins at conception, right, under the 14th Amendment, because that's why they could do that, okay? All right. I start talking to activists in the movement, Monica Miller, Jeff White, others. Just so happened in January of 2018 was the 30th anniversary of President Reagan's Personhood Proclamation. That was just a proclamation, not a presidential executive order. But we did a huge Twitter campaign because we can access the president through Twitter, emails, all right, the whole bit. Since then, I've been pounding the president with this Personhood Proclamation presidential executive order. They've acknowledged they've had it. Even last month, a friend of mine at the National Pro-Life Forum that they have every 2 months Paul Teller, who's an advisor to the president, who heard my presentation at the Wyrick luncheon where I met Kellyanne Conway, all right, months before. I gave a presentation on the Personhood Proclamation presidential executive order, and all right, he stayed for the questions and answers. I answered every question. Morton Blackwell, all right, who chaired the meeting, says, hey, I think it's a great idea. We should all get behind it, right? Paul Teller heard it. They asked Paul Teller at the National Leadership Pro-Life meeting just in July. A friend of mine got up and said, Mr. Teller, is the Personhood Proclamation presidential executive order still alive and on the table? And Paul Teller says, yes, it is. Yes, it is. All right? So Donald Trump has this presidential executive order. Let me read the whole thing to you. All right? Because we brainstormed this, and in May 1st, 2018, all right, I wrote this article. And again, the administration has all of this. So what if Donald Trump, all right, issues this executive order? And what if after he issues the executive order, he immediately orders federal law enforcement to close all abortion facilities in the United States? What if he then instructs the Department of Justice to immediately prosecute anyone who performs an abortion from that day forward? What if the federal courts then issue an injunction attempting to halt the presidential executive order? Now, at that point in time, he can then defend the order all the way up to the Supreme Court. Alexandra Snyder, who's the head of Life Legal Defense Fund, has already said, Father, that is the quickest path from where we are now to the Supreme Court reviewing personhood, which they have not done in 46 years. They have not looked at personhood in 46 years. They've avoided it at all costs. We're all talking about overturning Roe versus Wade. Overturning Roe versus Wade is not going to change one thing in this country. Making abortion illegal will change something temporarily. They'll keep trying to make it legal again. Personhood is the answer. We've never had a national strategy for personhood. Personhood Alliance is on board with this too. Citizen Go is on board with this. They have done a couple of email campaigns for me. All right? But what if President Trump decided to do something really, really radical and ignores the injunction, stating that the courts have no jurisdiction over the executive branch? What if he further states the daily mass murder of thousands of innocent preborn persons is a constitutional crisis and a national emergency? He could also charge that because the federal courts initiated and continue to protect this legalized American Holocaust, they have no moral authority to keep him from stopping the bloodshed. What if President Trump risked a constitutional crisis to end the clear and ongoing constitutional crisis? I gave that to the administration in May 2018. I know they got it. Okay, so what's happening right now? What's happening right now? Clearly, Trump has decided, all right, that he's not going to do this term, and of course, the clock ran out on that probably a couple of years ago. He would have had to done it early in the term. People say, well, can't the next president overturn a presidential executive order? Absolutely. But of course, if he did it early enough, that executive order, all right, do you think it'd ever make it to the next president? I mean, the abortion issue as we know it in this country would be turned upside down in a day. In a day. It'd be like we'd never seen overnight. Berlin Wall came down overnight, all right? This issue would change overnight, right? And of course, we'd be focused on personhood. He's not going to risk, all right, the 2020 election, all right, as a referendum on personhood. He's not going to risk that. They've already made the decisions that they're going to go with what? The border, immigration, late-term abortion, right? Late-term abortion, and then, of course, jobs in the economy, okay? It's too late, all right? All right, so what does that mean for us? What does that mean for us? Well, what it means for us, and I want to point out before I get to this, all right? If you go to my website, protestchildkilling.com, up at the top, I have a whole list of decisive strategies to end preborn child killing. All right, the mainstream pro-life movement has been enabling the party of omission, all right, for years and years and years. And what have they been enabling? Overly cautious incrementalism. Overly cautious incrementalism. You know, the pro-life movement, nobody in the leadership of the pro-life movement is discussing any decisive strategies than preborn child killing. Never. In the 3.5 years I was in the leadership, never ever discussed decisive strategies than preborn child killing. Are there decisive strategies? Sure. Martin Luther King's sustained peaceful protest. Lech Walesa's solidarity, right? Shut down the government, right? That they did in Poland to get the communists to leave. Is that reasonable now with a president like Trump, a pro-life president? No, nobody's got the stomach for that stuff. How about a nationwide Gabriel project where we go to the bishops and say, instituted in every single parish, the abortion industry would implode upon itself within a few years. Do you know that there was a bishop in the early 90s that was calling for a national tax strike? In the early 90s, a national tax strike. There's a guy up in the Northwest has not paid taxes since 1999 based on conscientious objection that his tax money was going to fund abortion. I talked to him a few months on the phone. Since 1990, he's not in jail. He's not in jail. And they don't plan to put him in jail. Hasn't paid taxes, federal taxes. But we're not even discussing this stuff. No decisive strategies than preborn child killing. All right, the Personhood Proclamation presidential executive order, I gave to my boss at Priest for Life in July of 2017. All right, the same time I gave it to the Trump administration. No interest. Nobody in the major mainstream pro-life movement except the activist arm of the pro-life movement has any interest in this. All right, so what does that mean? What does that mean? What's our strategy going forward? Well, look, if President Trump loses the election in 2020, then we've squandered the best chance we have to end preborn child killing in 46 years and may have forever and ever. Right? So we can't let that happen. We can't let that happen. However, if he wins re-election in 2020, and I plan on this month, after I'm done with this trip, sending Kellyanne Conway and Paul Teller and my other contacts in the administration this message. The day that President Trump gets reelected, the day he gets reelected, not inaugurated, reelected, he has said he has a solution to the abortion issue. It's right there, it's public, black and white. I know he has the power to implement that solution because I know what it is. And now that he's reelected, he has no more excuses. There's no more excuses. So from the day he gets reelected, the blood of every baby killed from that day on is on his hands. And when I tweet the president, when I tweet Trump, @real Donald Trump, please sign #Personhood Proclamation, #Presidential Executive Order. Become the #New Lincoln. This is #Your Legacy, Trump Legacy, #Free the Unborn, #End Slavery in the Womb, right? All right, all the time. I've had other people doing it, all right, for years now, a couple of years. Emails, I have people in Kellyanne Conway's office, I have their email address, all right? We've been bombarding them. Trump's birthday, June 14th. You know that Trump was born on Flag Day, which means his conception date was the Feast of the Exaltation of the Cross, September 14th. If he was a full-term baby, all right, his conception day was the Feast of the Exaltation of the Cross. He was born on Flag Day, all right? So for last week, for the Feast of the Exaltation of the Cross, I was tweeting and getting other people to tweet, all right, President Trump, email, please give every baby conceived an opportunity to have a birthday as you did, all this stuff. So we've been going on for a couple of years, all right? So the fact of the matter is, we need, all right, more people, all right, to just keep encouraging him, all right, to get behind this, all right? That is action item number 1. Action item number 2, all right, if you are giving money to the national mainstream pro-life movement, ponder in your heart where that money is going. Because I am telling you right now, and I have spent hours and hours and hours on Charity Navigator and also guidestar.org. I encourage you to go to those two websites and you Google any national pro-life organization. There has never been a social justice or civil rights movement in this country that looks like our current day pro-life movement. Not a one. Slick marketing, celebrity, tens of millions of dollars, maybe more than $100 million goes through the national mainstream pro-life movement every single year. And they're spending tens of millions of dollars to bring in these tens of millions of dollars. You're paying hundreds of people millions of dollars to bring in this money. Do you know where your money's going when you give it to one of these large national mainstream pro-life organizations? It's going to bring in more money. It's going to pay high salaries. And what are we getting? What is happening? At best, overly cautious incrementalism, but really nothing. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. So, am I saying don't give to the pro-life movement? I'm saying no, give more. Give more. But give it locally. Give it locally. All right, you're all local advocates, you're all local activists. We need to convince people that the money needs to go at this level. Not me, I don't need any money. All right, I'm going to ask for a free will offering, donations Phil put up there. I usually pass around, actually, I give the guilt trip, Make America Holy Again. Hey, gas money for the camper trailer, free will offering. I never pay for any event. I've never charged for any event. I'm sorry, never charged for any event. Free will offering to cover expenses. I live off of my Social Security, my corporate pension, and my priestly pension, and it gives me enough, all right, and that's it. All right, I don't take any money out of the ministry for personal salary. However, I'm not interested in money, okay? I'm interested in the local ministries, local activists getting money, local Rachel's Vineyard, local pregnancy resource centers, local sidewalk advocate, all right, coordinators, all right, local 40 Days for Life coordinators, right? Instead of sending a check to national, go to a local coordinator, say, hey, can I give you a couple $100 to buy materials, buy signs, buy whatever you need, buy big gift bags, right? Same thing. So local university or college student groups, right? Instead of sending it to national, find a coordinator, your local university or a pro-life group on college campus. They don't get any money from the college campus, and they don't get anything from national. All right, and I'm telling you, these kids would do great things if they had a couple of $1,000. They work on nothing. And I can go on. Rachel's Vineyard, pregnancy resource centers, all the local street coordinators. What are the local coalitions for life?
Gabriel Project.
Huh?
Gabriel Project.
Gabriel Project, right? Local. Why? Well, how many people here pay or know they have tax money, all right, tax money that goes to education? How many here? All right, your tax money goes to education, right? How many of you feel it's proper for the tax money to go to the U.S. Department of Education, all right, where they take about 50% out and then redistribute it wherever they want, all right? That's ridiculous. Nobody wants to do that. Nobody even wants to give it to the State Department of Education because you don't know where that money's going after they pay the bureaucracy. Where do you want your education tax money to go to? Your local school district, right? All right, so that if they mess up, you can go to your local school board and say your neighbor, right, knock on his door and say, hey, I don't like what you're doing with my money, right? All right, but as local activists, that's where we want the money. We want the money local, where you know where the money's going, how it's being spent, all right, and you can work with these people, all right, time, talent, and treasure. So those are the two things. I wish I had another hour to flesh out all of the things that I said, all right, but I am telling you, this is the reality. And I could go on and on and on. American Life League just a few weeks ago, all right, we hear all the time, we're winning, right? We're just this close, All the national groups say, just this close. We're not this close. How many have heard here that the demand for abortion is going down? How many have heard that?
the news today.
It's a lie. It's a lie. The demand for abortion is not going down. The demand for abortion is shifting. It's shifting. Where is it shifting? We know chemical abortions. It's shifting into OBGYN offices. There's 68,000 OBGYNs in this country. All right, only 8,000 of them are part of the pro-life OBGYN organization. That means there's 50 to 60,000 OBGYNs that are pro-choice. You don't think they're doing abortions in their offices for their own patients or referrals? We're not even scratching that surface. And then the chemical abortions. American Life League just came out with a video saying we're not winning. We're not winning. If you look at the trends, and you really look at them properly, since 1973, the same amount of people who are purely pro-choice are still purely pro-choice. The same people who are purely pro-abort are still purely pro-abort, and the mushy middle is still the mushy middle. Right? All right, so I'm here to tell you the truth, and I know a lot more. I know tons of scandals that are going on in the national movement, corruption, bad business, improper conduct that I'm not going to get into, all right, but I'm telling you, all right, that we have this situation. We have 46 years, we know this to be a fact, 46 years of government-sanctioned, government-protected, government-funded daily mass murder of preborn children, party of omission, party of commission, enabled by the national mainstream pro-life movement, all right, and also enabled, all right, by the leaders of the church. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. All right. So now, I'll take questions and answers. I'm going to shut the video off. I do want to tell you that those two prayers that I gave you are prayers that I wrote. One for the National Rosary Rally, which is October 13th, Rosary Coast to Coast. Who's familiar with Rosary Coast to Coast? All right, good. So I hope we're having a couple of Rosary Coast